Hello. Thank you for joining ElevateEdAZ for this conversation where we explore career opportunities in the health sciences field. My name is Casey Quinones, and I'm the college and career coach for ElevateEdAZ. ElevateEdAZ is the education initiative of the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation that is connecting business and education. Whether you decide to enroll in college or enter the workforce, ElevateEdAZ will make sure you get experiences that help you succeed in school and beyond. My role as the college and career coach for ElevateEdAZ is to support you in achieving your goals. This quick discussion with an industry leader will help you gain a stronger understanding of what a biotech career could look like for you during high school and beyond into college. Now, I'm pleased to introduce Sarah Finch with the Phoenix Police Department. She will focus on what a career in biotech looks like.
Hello, everybody. Like you said, my name is Sarah Finch, and I work at the Phoenix Police Department Crime Lab. I'm a forensic scientist here. I've been here for a little over 6 years. And in my section, I process items of evidence for fingerprints and biological material. So just a little bit of background, though, of what we do here as a lab. Since it is a forensic lab, you have to know what forensic science is. And it's not just your typical science, it's actually the application of science to the law and to items of evidence that have come from crime scenes. So we're looking at these evidence, pieces of evidence, we're testing them, we're analyzing them, we're evaluating them, but we're also helping officers and detectives as well as lawyers answer questions about the case itself. Who did something, how did they do it, possibly a timeline type of thing. There's a lot of questions that we try and answer with the science of it, but we analyze the evidence and then give objective answers to them. So it takes a lot of different types of sciences, though, in the lab itself. Some of it is hard science with chemistry and biology, and some of it is more applied science. So next slide, please. So a lot of people may have heard of the show CSI. It's not really that popular anymore, but there are crime shows out there. And what you have is CSI versus reality. What happens on TV versus what we actually do here in the lab. So it doesn't take an hour to solve a crime. Most of the time, if not probably 95% to 99%, it takes longer than an hour to analyze one item of evidence. So that's one thing that's different. And also it's very much a team approach versus one person. A lot of times on TV, you have one person doing the whole analysis of one whole case. That's not very typical unless you're a very small rural lab and you don't have many sections. Here in Phoenix, we're the 5th largest city, and we have a very large lab, and we have many different sections. So you're an expert in your section. You won't do all the analysis. And many of the times, forensic scientists are not police officers. We're not sworn, we're actually civilian. There are some agencies that have police officers that analyze evidence, but we in Phoenix do not do that. We are civilians. Next slide, please. So these next couple of slides are just examples of how reality versus what you may see on TV, how it actually fits in and what we actually work with. So the middle picture is a picture of a photo room that we use in my section, actually. So that's how we're looking at the item of evidence and taking pictures of fingerprints. So it's a copy stand with lights and a really expensive camera with some filters. It's not super high tech. It's a nice camera, but we're using regular things. On the far right is a comparison microscope that they use in firearms to look at casings and markings that firearms have caused on bullets or the casings of a bullet. Next slide, please. This slide shows the difference in lightings that we use. Now, some of the lights that you see on TV, we actually use, they're just not shown correctly on TV versus how we use them. So a lot of times you'll see like the bottom left, it looks like a blue light and he has that little orange filter over it. You do need the orange filter to see what the light is shining on, but we wear goggles, so we wear orange goggles to actually see it because that light is typically very intense and it can damage your eyes. And a lot of stuff will glow, but not everything. Blood doesn't glow, which a lot of times they show it on TV like that. But the far right pictures are actually what we use. So the bottom right is what we call polylight, and it has different colors of light that we use. It's different wavelengths. And we'll look at a piece of evidence and look at all these, look at it with all these different wavelengths and the colors of light. Next slide, please. So to become a forensic scientist, you do need to have your bachelor's degree. Now, you can get your bachelor's degree in a hard science like biology, chemistry, biotechnology, or forensic science. The main thing that they're looking at is your science credit hours. So some forensic science programs don't actually have a lot of science credits. So if this is a career that you're looking at, just make sure you're looking at the whole program and you're looking to see the science involved, because you need those in order to become a forensic scientist. And it depends on what section you want to work on in. Some sections have specific requirements. To work in a DNA section, you need to take biochemistry, molecular biology, genetics, and statistics. Those are required for accreditation purposes. So any lab that's accredited will most likely have these classes that need to be taken. So just be aware of what section you want to work in and what may be required. Here in Phoenix, we do offer tuition reimbursement if you wanted to continue your education. Many people here at the lab have acquired their master's degree and had the city pay for it. I took a graduate certificate program online, and it was paid by the city through the tuition reimbursement. Also, not only do you need your degree, there is an extensive background check, a polygraph, and a drug test that you must pass in order to work for the Phoenix Police Department. Next slide, please. So some of the general duties that we do as scientists, and this is very broad, not section specific, but we're looking at the items of evidence collected from a crime scene. We're going to analyze those. We're going to write a report on what we found and on the item, what our analysis, what the conclusions were. And then we may be called to court to testify on these conclusions. It's not all the time that we go, but it is, you will go at least once in your career, I'll say that. Some sections go many more times than others. Our toxicology section goes the most, and then the other sections, it declines from there. So a question of what can you do to help yourself become a forensic scientist? Get into college, study science or forensic science, keep a clean record. You want to be able to pass that background check and the polygraph and everything. Practice public speaking. When we have to go to court, we are trying to educate the jurors on what our conclusions are, and to do that, you can't be scientific to a high level. You need to put it in layman's terms, and you need to explain it that a regular person pulled off the street can understand it. So we have to translate our reports and our scientific analysis into layman's terms. And also, I would encourage volunteering or interning at a lab. Most labs, our lab here at Phoenix, you have to be at least 18 years old. We do have a program with the Phoenix Police Department that students can have an internship here at the lab, but you can also just be a volunteer. You don't necessarily have to be enrolled in school to be a volunteer. Next slide, please. So these are some of the services that we provide at the crime lab, and these are the sections, I should say. Crime scene response, they're the ones that actually go out to the scene, gather the evidence, take the photos, do any drawings that need to be done of the scene itself, and then come back and impound the evidence. At Phoenix, they do not analyze any items of evidence. They are simply going to the scene, bringing it back, and impounding it. The other sections actually analyze. Firearms, they mainly deal with firearms. They're doing test functions, looking at cartridges and bullets, different things like that. Toxicology, test blood and urine for any blood, for alcohol or drugs, excuse me. Controlled substances, test the hard drug or the actual drug itself. Our trace section is kind of a catch-all, and it does a lot of different tests, anything from looking at fibers and paint to gunshot residue, arson cases. They're kind of the catch-all. If it doesn't fit into the other sections, it goes to trace. Latent Prints does the actual fingerprint comparison. So if I were to take a picture of a fingerprint, I would send it to Latent Print comparison section, and they're going to look at the info that's provided and try and identify that fingerprint to maybe somebody in the case itself or to the other comparison subjects that they have. Evidence screening is my section, and we, like I said, analyze for fingerprints as well as testing and collecting biological material. And then forensic DNA, they take DNA samples and try and develop a profile from them. Next slide, please. Some of the positions that we offer here at the lab, laboratory technician is basically the starter position. It's the lowest level, and then it goes all the way up to our crime lab administrator. So crime scene specialists, you have levels 1, 2, and 3, and they work in crime scene response unit. They also have shift supervisors, excuse me, and then section supervisors. Then forensic scientists are in all the other sections, and that has 4 levels. Each section has their own supervisor, and then we have 2 assistant quality managers actually, and then 3 assistant crime lab administrators and 1 crime lab administrator. Next slide, please. So this is just a range of the wages because we work for the police department and ultimately we work for the city of Phoenix. This is public record. The only thing though, I have an asterisk at the bottom wage, and that's because this position was actually a sworn position. It was an officer that had this, and I'm not sure if that has been updated to a civilian title as far as wages yet. So that's why the asterisk is there. This was kind of a general picture of it. But these are the ranges that these positions can earn. Next slide, please. So some of the skills and attributes that you need and that we're looking for here at the Crime Lab. One of the things, and this is where your biotechnology classes and what you're learning in this program, this is where this all takes, where you'll put it into practice. So we're looking for ethical people. We work for the police department, so it's kind of understood that we need to be ethical, but it goes beyond that. You're going to court and you're testifying on your cases and your findings, and you're basically, what you analyze, the results could send a person to jail or it could exonerate them. So ethics are a big thing here. Team-oriented, like I said at the beginning, it's not one person doing all the work. It's very much a team aspect. Public speaking skills again. Detail-oriented. So a lot of the stuff that we look at is small, and we're trying to find hairs and fibers and look at fingerprints at different angles and the fingerprint itself. So paying attention to detail and small items is very important. Another thing is having a passion for science and helping people. From the answers of the previous questions, I can see that you guys are already passionate about that, but this is just another way of showing it and kind of growing that passion that you may have. You must be willing to learn and be adaptable also. Things change a lot in the world of science. Things are always improving, but then you could have something that typically you process it one way, and for whatever reason, you need to adjust your process for this item. So it's most of the time it's cut and dry, but there will be times where you have to learn and adapt to different things. I put photography on here as a skill if you have it. That helps depending on what section you go into, but it's not required. And then any lab experience. Your school, if you work for a lab at the school, if you work for a lab, a private sector, anything like that, any experience that you have kind of puts you a little bit over the edge. So relating your biotechnology learning, so what you're learning in your classes. Remember your laboratory skills and your safety. Ultimately, you're coming out of a classroom setting with all the lab skills and coming into this lab, should you get a job here. So just remember all those and bring them into practice. Safety is key. We have clean techniques in our lab, so we're using a PPE and we're cleaning with bleach to not contaminate the items. So just remembering those different skills that you learned in your classes. Critical thinking and problem solving is very important. Each case is treated individually, and you have to look at that case and see how you need to process that item. Pull in your lab classes and examples for your interviews. That's really important, and there's actually a lot of applicants that don't do it, and we're always surprised because that is your experience. If you don't have a job, that is your experience. So pull those in for interviews. If you did any research projects in your lab, whether they be independent or a group, really expound upon those in the interview. Say what your role was, what the outcome was, what you learned, and how was it beneficial? Did you learn from it? Could anything be better? Any SOPs? So I'm sure you had to follow SOPs in your classes and your lab settings. Here, it's just as important. It's actually very important because we follow our SOPs to keep our accreditation, and that's how it's lined out of how we analyze the items of evidence. So following SOPs is very important. And then stay up to date on technology and literature that's out there. In biotechnology, a lot of times you may have some research stuff that you've either done or that you're interested in. Sometimes that can correlate to forensics. There's a lot of change that's happening right now with forensics. So just staying up to date. If you're aware of something in research, you could possibly bring that to your lab and do a validation on it and get published. So always being aware of what's out there, looking at what other labs do, and just being up to date on that is really important.